Leaders podcast. I'm Melanie O'Connor and I have the amazing B Roberts here with me. We're on episode number 7 and we were just having a discussion about how to introduce B, and one of the things that I love most about B is she's very similar to me in the sense that she's got a lot going on. She's a very savvy lady. She's one of the most inspiring people you'll speak to, and yet she's just down to earth, humble and real about being a mum and trying to navigate life and business, as we all are. I mean, I'm not a mum, but I hope to be one day. And what I love is she's just focused on connecting on a human to human level with people and just being so empowering and inspiring along the way. Sometimes I don't think you even realize just how much so.
No, thank you.
So I'm so excited to have a chat, and I'm excited for more people to meet you and get to know who you are. So I'd love to, if it's okay, just share a little bit of your background and your story. I know you've got an interesting background and ancestral background, where you've come from, where your family's from. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if it's okay, let's start there and then we'll dive into some of the other pieces.
Amazing. So yeah, thank you so much, Melanie, for having me on. My name's B Roberts. I'm a full-time working mum, building my own business. I'm a wife, and all of those titles that literally society tries to put on us. But my story is about how I've had to navigate who I am, and that comes through the stories that I learned what was going on in my family's life and where my family came from only when I was 22, 23. And I'm originally from South America, so I was born in Colombia. And when I was 7, my parents moved over. There was nothing strange about it. My parents just packed up their bags with my 2 siblings, 5 of us all together, and just hopped on a plane and came over to the UK. And that was it. There was nothing really else to it that I knew. But what I later found out was how much my parents were trying to protect us. And it's a bit of a crazy one, because after I left university, I became really passionate about working with individuals who had faced human trafficking and sexual exploitation. And that was my job straight after uni. What we find is that a lot of individuals who are brought into the UK under human trafficking and sexual exploitation, they end up seeking asylum in the UK because they can't return back to their homes. So I find myself as a 22, 23-year-old walking into an asylum accommodation. And asylum accommodation is where they house asylum seekers. Yeah. And I recognize the smells. I literally am like, I've been here before. I recognize this smell. Why do I recognize this smell? Why do I recognize this place? It just shook me a little bit, and I had to go back home. And I was battling how to ask my parents, why on earth do I feel connected to this building? Yeah. And that's when I found out that my parents actually came from Colombia to the UK as asylum seekers because they were under crazy danger back in 2000 in Colombia. And I didn't know this. For 15 years, my family had protected us in a way that it just looked like my dad had come over to another country to get another job, and we were just starting another life. At that point in time, I had to attempt to embrace who I was, because for a long time I was just this normal girl, what I thought was just a normal girl who was from another country, hadn't really embraced her culture that much, but then suddenly I was being told that actually we came to another country to seek refuge. And there's a lot of stigma with that. Maybe not so much now, with people being a little bit more open-minded, but just a couple of years ago, it was still like, why are you in our country? Why are you here? And I was having to deal with I'm one of those people. And basically what had happened was my dad had a really good job. My dad was the owner of lorries and they transported things back and forth within Colombia. Basically got threatened. There was a civil war in Colombia between the guerrillas and between the army. And he was approached by one of them, I'm not quite sure which one, to do a job. And he refused to do the job. A couple of weeks later, it was his birthday, and he decided to take the weekend off, and he handed his lorry to a colleague so that they could continue the work. The lorry went missing. This male and his 3-year-old son went missing, and it was like a misidentity. They thought it was my dad and my youngest brother, and they never appeared again. So at that point in time, my parents knew that our lives were in danger. And this was a lot to grasp. As a 23-year-old woman, a young adult, I just felt like my life was just totally different story than what I had known. It definitely triggered this, like, well, who the heck am I? Who am I? And although I was so grateful, and I still am so grateful for my parents for doing that, because I have seen the extent of what the asylum and immigration process does to a child. I didn't have to go through that because my parents protected me so much. So I'm so grateful for that. But it definitely triggered this who am I question. Who the heck am I? Where have I come from? Even just the values, should I care about immigration more? For me, what I've learned throughout is that I put my worth on a lot of things. And my worth has to come from my doing or from who I am in order to feel that worth. And being an asylum seeking child, it almost felt like I was a reject in society. And that was a little bit hard, because then I had to understand that actually it's not something that is a burden to me. It's actually something that empowers me. Becoming from that allows me to have a voice for those who don't have a voice in that situation. Whilst it was something that I felt ashamed of, now it's something that I boast of, because actually for somebody I am hope. And it's understanding that, and it's switching that switch where it's no, I can be somebody who gives a voice to somebody who doesn't have a voice. I can put myself in the place of a woman who is seeking asylum, be there in a way that I would have wanted somebody to be there for my mum and dad. And it changed the game for me. It changed how I worked. It changed how I treated people. It changed how I supported the women that I was supporting at the time who were victims of human trafficking and seeking asylum at the same time. So that's a little bit of past, which has definitely molded into what I do now, into my work. And I'm just passionate to help women in those vulnerable situations actually be empowered to know that they don't have to remain in the prison that the system has placed them in, or that individuals have placed them in, but actually they can have freedom in owning their story, in owning where they've come from, in overcoming the traumas, in overcoming the hardship, and seeing where they've come from and living out their lives.
Gosh, yes, I love it. There's absolutely nothing that I could add to that. That was just beautiful, because I had this feeling of like, oh, I want to know more about that story. And as soon as you said, like, thank you, it's like, oh, this story needs to be heard. So the main reason that I do hope this podcast really takes off is for stories like what you just shared to be heard by more people.
I love that.
It's really interesting. The more that you get into the specifics of the story, the more universal it feels. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
So I was just resonating with so much, even though I haven't been through half of what you did. I can remember feeling like that at one point in my life. I remember that whole identity thing of like, who the hell am I? It was a different situation, but it triggered that in me as well. You've got such a beautiful gift just in your voice and sharing a story. It's real and it's universal, and people just relate to you when you share. It's amazing. I was visited South America for about 6 months, like 10 years ago now. I love
It's beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
my favorite places on earth. Just I didn't get to go to Colombia, but I was just like, I have to come back here. It's just so much to explore. It's just incredible continent. And
I fell in love with it. I literally fell in love with it. I've only been back once, and that in itself, like, my parents were so like, you've got to be careful, please be careful. I went back with my husband, and I fell in love with it, and I needed that. I needed to go. I was so detached from my culture, and I was so detached from my roots that going back, I came back so empowered about who I was. I came back in love with my culture. I came back embracing the loudness. I came back just being like, I know a part of who I am, which has helped me navigate the question, because it's an ongoing question for me. It has been an ongoing question of, be, who are you? And that element, it's almost like I was able to take it off and be like, actually, I know my roots, and roots are down at the bottom, right? And then you start seeing the tree and the plant and then the flourishing and all, but there has to be roots. You don't get the blossoms, you don't get the fruit, you don't get the trunk and anything without the roots. And I was able to say, yes, I know my roots. Okay, let's work on the next level. And that's been the journey from that, and the life lessons where I'm like, I have my foundation. I know my foundation. I know where I came from. And I fell in love with it. I had to fall in love with it. And I boast about my South American, and I'm like, yes, I am all Colombian.
I love it. Oh, so good. I think we've got a bit of Spanish in our family somewhere along the way too, because
of course you do.
I've got that, whatever that vibe is.
The hips. You've got the hips. You've got the hips don't lie in you.
When I hear that music, it's like something else takes over for sure.
Absolutely. There's definitely something in your blood.
Somewhere along the lines, yes, it has to be.
I love it. That's great.
Oh my goodness. I think that question that we start asking, the who am I question, it's actually something that the idea of greatness has always been a concept that's been interesting to me. Ever since I was a little kid, looking at these athletes, because Australia was very much athletes are gods kind of thing. And just watching one of the athletes compete at the Olympic Games and winning a gold medal from lane 8, which is the slowest lane in the pool, and going, I want to do that. But the thing that really it was about for me was that idea of greatness. And greatness is not an external thing. It's definitely not an achievement. It's something that comes from within you. And in a lot of my investigations, the first question that people ask on the path to greatness is, who am I? Who am I really?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think you highlighted that really beautifully.
It's a big, big question. And I think for me, we'll get into this like self-discovery and how I did it. Absolutely. But for so long, because I'm a massive people pleaser. That's just like something that I've had to overcome. But through my people pleasing, I forgot who I was. Through people pleasing constantly, you begin to place your identity in what you do and the admiration or the clap and affirmation that you get from other people, to the point that you start molding yourself to that affirmation. And after you do that for many, many years, actually the desires in your heart, the desires in my heart and who I was and my true identity were just hidden. I didn't have a clue. And so this question as I was preparing to get married, again, who am I? That question pops up. Well, I'm about to be given an identity as a wife. Well, I don't know who I am as me. Never mind what I'm going to be like as a wife. And then motherhood happened, and that was even bigger. That's when it really rocked me, because I was like, this motherhood, becoming a wife, there's an element of choice in that.
Yeah.
Motherhood, you have to take it and you have to embrace it, and it just happens. You can't back away from that responsibility. And it shook me to the core of, who am I? Again, that question popped up. But it's because I hadn't dealt with the previous, who am I as a wife? Who am I as me before I was even a wife? So I think that's so important. Like I said at the beginning, society gives us so many titles. And even when you're trying to introduce yourself, I find that with women, we're like, oh, my name is so-and-so, and this is what I do. This is what my husband does. This is my marital status. This is my family status. And we put it on these statuses that we think are our identity, because society tells us that they are our identity. But actually, before all of those statuses, we were us. I am me. And so when we're bombarded with these statuses, you grab hold of them and you attach them to your identity. But we haven't even been given time to recognize who we are before we're thrown in with these statuses and with what society tells us. And it took stripping that out. It took going to a dark place where I was like, I need to just sit down on my own and even figure out what my favorite color was. Because if you said your favorite color was pink, I'd be like, yeah, my favorite color is pink too. It's just like, because in me, I was like, well, I need to make sure that you like me. And our commonality is going to be that our favorite color is pink. Well, girl, my favorite color is pink too. So it took stripping all of that back to really go, okay, be who are you, and let's embrace who you are. Let's fall in love with who you are, and then let's add the other things that need to be added. So that whole identity, I mean, it's a journey. I'm still on it. I'm still massively on it. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, I think there are so many women around the world, and not just women, men too. I think men equally, probably in a slightly different context, they're struggling with who they are as a man in the world. I think for both women and men, kind of going through a big, massive thing, and even identity of what it means to be a woman or what it means to be a man, and attaching identity.
Absolutely.
But there's something that even precedes that we need to discover. And I think you explain that beautifully. So yes, so good. And I'm totally in alignment. I love it. It's one of my philosophies, I suppose, as well. Discovering who you are underneath all the labels and underneath all the attachments, underneath all the identities. So totally on board with you.
I love it. Yes.
When you were sharing a story, I won't go too deep into it, but it was something that really hit home for me, because it's something I've been passionate about for a long time, is the human trafficking situation, women and children especially. That I read a book, I think it was, what's her name? Can't even remember her name, but she was saying that it was like 1 million women and children every year are trafficked.
It's crazy.
It's the second biggest crime rate in the world after and that's such a big thing to take on at such a young age. I don't know where you're at with it now, or your mission is in that regard, or what you'd like to see, but it was definitely something I was like, oh yeah, that's something, if I could do something on that, I would die a happy woman. If I could do just the smallest thing to impact that in a positive direction,
It just seemed like a job as it is. I leaving uni with a job, working with a charitable organisation, just doing the job. I think we can get very in the routine of, oh yeah, that's just my job. But once I understood what I was doing, because it's not just about doing the supporting admin of helping somebody restore their lives. You can help somebody get accommodation, you can get somebody get clothing, you can help somebody book a GP appointment, like a doctor's appointment, and you can tick that off and say, yeah, I've done my job. But when you realise that actually what I realised within working with victims of human trafficking was that the restoration has to come within. These are individuals who have been lied to, who have been coerced, who have been handed a promise, who have been told, here's a promise of a better life. Because they're desperately seeking for that better life. They grasped hold of it and they were deceived into something completely different. And we're talking about individuals who, my youngest survivor that I worked with, she had been trafficked when she was 14 in the UK, and she only came to light when she was 18. Her first sexual encounter was with a male who was brought in to teach her how to have sex at 14. And when you realise those stories and what has been taught to these young women and men is that they have no value. No. But then you have the power to come in, pour love and pour value and pour that freedom and that restoration within their lives. Yeah. And you get to see somebody who walks into a system broken, and a few years later, they are absolutely thriving. Yeah. Because it takes one individual. And I love this, and it's something that's to my core, because even within my transformation, it took one individual who believed in me. Yeah. And it changed everything. For these women and men, it takes one individual who says, no, you are worthy of something better. You are worthy of a life of freedom. You are worthy of X, Y, and Z. Pour that belief into them and they start walking in it. And I love that when we translate that to what I'm passionate about. Like, it's something that I love doing. I'm in a different sector, but it's something that I continue to be very involved with. So at the moment, I work with individuals who are undergoing honor-based abuse, which basically means that things like forced marriage, female genital mutilation, individuals, these are still practices within culture. Again, I'm a very cultural person. I come from a country that has a lot of culture and embrace culture, and culture should be seen as beautiful. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be seen as something that harms somebody. Yeah. And for these individuals, again, they have been told that their value comes for take a woman who has undergone FGM. They've been told that the only way they are valuable to a man is if they mutilate themselves, if they have a part of their body mutilated. Yeah. And we're having to educate communities, educate cultures, but also support women who have undergone this and telling them that's not where your value comes from. Yeah. Society has told you that, but that is a lie. And then again, that restoration comes into play, and you see an individual who is broken, and after you pour that belief in them, it's the power of walking alongside somebody, pouring belief, and you see something amazing happen at the end. Yeah. Because they walk in their freedom.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it's hefty, but it's so rewarding.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. You can only meet someone, I believe, or you can only really meet someone at a level that you've met yourself.
Yeah. I think even though I've not had a trauma like that happen, I've been at a place where I've been so lost in myself.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That I can go, well, let's do this together. I know I've learned how to find myself. Let me help you do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really beautiful. It's really sad what goes on, but it's really beautiful what comes out of it.
I can imagine it takes more strength than a lot of people would even begin to comprehend it, just in yourself. in the way that you need to show up, because you can just feel it in you when you talk about it. Yeah,
I'm very passionate about it. I
I
do
love
just
it.
start going.
Oh, no, it's like that. I love it. I was like, how can I help even more? What can we do with this? This is what I'm thinking. There's so much, you have so much to give, and it's beautiful. What can I do to help you be able to do this even more? So that's just where my mind goes on it. And I think maybe there's a part 2 talking about that sometime in the future, I think, with
Definitely.
with that element of it. For now on this one, let's circle back around to the tools, I suppose, a little bit, or one of your favorite tools that you use with answering that question, who am I? And it's a lifelong journey. We'll be asking that, especially as women. We've got the maiden, the mother, the wise woman.
Absolutely.
We've got such evolutions in our life cycle, and so many changes that we go through.
Yeah.
So going to be in a constant inquiry, and it's something that I don't know that much about, but I'd love to learn more about. One of the tools that I believe you found very helpful was Enneagrams. Did I say that? Can you share a little bit about that and how it's helped you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it when somebody talks about the Enneagram, or when somebody is even like a little bit like clued up. I feel like I'm speaking their language. I feel like we are speaking a language. So I love sharing it, but I think I love sharing it because it's something that really helped me. And it helped me understand. What I've learned is that it allows you to have a voice. It allows your emotions to have a voice that you never knew were there.
Wow.
And I would say like the cheap way to describing it would be it's a personality test, but it's so much more than that. So much more. And as I was going through this, I'd call it an identity crisis of becoming a mum, I thought I need something that explains. And a friend introduced me to it. And I think I was only a couple of months pregnant. And I thought, wow, this is really interesting. This is speaking things that I've never even told anybody about how I feel. And it wasn't until later on, once I'd had my baby girl, that I found myself in a very dark place, that I thought I need to start looking at and doing the work. And this really helped me. So the best way that I've heard it being described is individuals all have different glasses on. There's essentially 9 different types of personality, and each type has its own set of glasses. And when you put those glasses on, you see the world through a different coloured lens. So you and I, Melanie, we see the world in 2 different ways because our lenses are a different colour. But it allows me to understand that I'm seeing my world through green. You may be seeing your colour through blue. But then I have the compassion, because I know potentially what your personality type is. I can say, well, I see why your viewpoint is through the lens of blue. And it gives me compassion to understand you more, but also you have compassion understanding me. As you dive into all of them. So my Enneagram is 3. I'm personality type 3. And it's the achiever. Our worth comes from doing. Our worth comes from achievement and success. Success looks very different to different people. Success to me looks like the praise from other people. So affirmations, what do people think about me? How aspiring am I? That's kind of like where my success comes from. To another personality, it could be what you can buy with that success. To another personality, success looks like power. So for me personally, it's how people see me and the value that people put on me. And again, as somebody who struggles with people pleasing, that was just like crazy, because I found myself doing things that I did not want to do purely to get the affirmation that I thought I needed to find my worth.
Mm-hmm.
We're also very afraid of failure. We're not good with failure. When you're unhealthy, you're not good with failure. I've learned to embrace failure and actually find that failure is my biggest teacher. But in an unhealthy place, that failure was something that I just didn't want to deal with. I didn't take very well. Having a C-section child and society telling me that actually that isn't really giving birth made me feel like a failure as a mother. And then a lot of things spiraled out of that. But again, it's things that society tells us, we internalize because of beliefs that we have inside of us, and then automatically start coming out in different ways. So yeah, there's 9 different types. I won't go into each and every one of them, but it's such an incredible tool because, like I said, it gave my emotions a voice. It made me go, oh, maybe that's why I'm feeling that way. It allowed me to recognize triggers. It allowed me to recognize insecurities that I was having and really get down to the root. So one thing that I remember, someone criticized me over Instagram. I'm very open on my social media about my life, about my walk, about what I do. And someone just criticized something. And it was very early in the morning that they criticized me. And as I was driving home at 6 p.m., I could still feel the anxiety in me. Yeah. I dealt with anxiety for about 7-8 hours, and I sat in the driveway of my car and I just thought, B, your husband and your baby girl are inside that house and you're about to walk in a foul mood because someone's criticism has really got into you. And I sat in my car for about 15 minutes and I was like, why are you feeling this way? And I feel like that was the first moment I started putting my work into practice. And so I sat there and as I asked, why are you feeling this way? Why have you allowed this person's criticism to get to you? I started peeling back layers. That criticism had a form of what I felt. She was rejecting me. Okay, why do I feel rejected by this person? Well, actually, it doesn't matter that it was her. It's just the rejection that I was feeling because I feel like somebody is undermining me or taking my worth. And then as I started peeling back these emotions and actively recognizing my own emotions, I found out that the core of it was just that I felt rejected. I felt like somebody was rejecting me. And at that point in time, I knew how to deal with the root. We're going back to roots. I'm not even like a green person, but I love the analogy of our lives as trees and as roots and blossoming. Yeah. And we went back. I literally was able to go to that root and go, my worth does not come from that. Mm-hmm. And then this practice of knowing my truth was born from that moment. And then I started actively telling myself my truth because I wasn't going to allow a lie of someone saying, well, I'm rejecting you for whatever reason, or my feeling of feeling rejected, to put any worth on who I was. And it came from somebody doing something as simple as, I don't like what you've said here. And peeling that back, finding that root, literally getting the weed killer out and saying, no, that is not welcome in my life anymore. But it's a practice. It's a practice, and it's come from really understanding who I am. And that tool as the Enneagram has just allowed me to feel empowered with who I am. And there's some nitty gritty things that I'm like, oh, I don't like that, but I embrace it because it's who I am. And people have negative traits and positive traits, but that's what makes us us. And it's about working with your positive traits and dealing with the negative traits. And it's just been a beautiful journey. And I would honestly recommend anybody. Do you know your Enneagram number?
I don't. No.
Melanie, I should have told you to do it beforehand.
I know. I should. Okay.
Absolutely.
But just from what you were sharing, I was like, oh, I think the 3 was who I was trying to be. Does that, like that, a success, and then realizing that's not who I am. Do you know what I mean? That's who I thought I should be, but I get like down here, I was like, oh, that's not me, and that's okay. So I went through a whole trying to be someone that I wasn't. If that makes sense.
Well, it could be, because if you go even deeper to it, when you're a 3, you have wings. So throughout life, different situations pull you into either the 2 or the 4. So the ones next to you. And even though you have a core, there is an element of you having to use your numbers next to you to deal with different situations. So you might actually be someone who isn't at a core 3 but has lent into your 3 to find some form of identity.
That makes sense.
So it's definitely, I would love, we'll sort it out so that you do the people say read all of the personalities and then see which one resonates with you the most. But in my head, I'm like, who's got time for that? So I just do the test. I did the online test and found it really, really useful. My one, it resonated with me. Daniel's my husband. It really resonated with him. And it's also been incredible to see how understanding, again, going back to those glasses, seeing how he sees the world and understanding how he sees the world. Sometimes I have to take my 3 glasses off and put his on, and then I go, that's how you're seeing this situation. And it's given me a lot of compassion towards him, how he processes information, how he processes people, different things that make me go, oh, I get you. And it's done incredible things for our marriage. It allows us to communicate. We understand each other. We're speaking a language that we understand, and I can go, okay, I'll give you time to Daniel's the type of person who takes 3 days to process a bit of information. And I want things here and now. I'm like, you need to give me your opinion right now, because I want to talk about this here and now. And he's like, I don't have an opinion on that. But give him 3 days.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm ready to talk about it. I've processed that information. So I have to say things like, babe, I want to have a conversation with you about our finances. Can we set a date in 3-4 days time? And he'll be ready. He'll come at me ready. And he's like, yeah, let's do this. But if I was to ask him to have a conversation about our finances within the hour, he'd be like, I don't know what you want this conversation for. So it's just allowed both of us to really get each other, which has been really, really useful. But definitely go and check it out.
I think I'd like to check out what my husband is as well. There's a personality profile I've been using. It's Wealth Dynamics by Roger Hamilton. It's got a really brilliant analogy in business context, but it's also helped me definitely understand how different me and my husband are. And I'm very much head in the clouds, big picture person, thinking 10 steps ahead, and he's down in the
I love it.
Yeah. So I understand that. Oh, I want to be like 10 steps ahead and up here. And So I miss the peripheral details, and he'll point out the one thing. I was like, oh, how did you even see that?
Yeah, exactly the same. I'm just like, it's incredible. I just think it allows you to just put a voice to things that didn't have a voice, or you didn't know how to voice. And it's definitely helped me with my postpartum depression, and just allowed me to really understand emotions. Because again, that for me, as a 3, even though it's not an identity. I want to make that clear. Like, my personality number is not my identity. It's just something that I have used, a tool, something that I've used to just give me a voice.
Yeah.
And just to understand myself. But something that we struggle with is that emotions are weakness. And so we box our emotions off because they get in the way. They get in the way of us succeeding. They get in the way of us achieving the goals, ticking the tick lists off. Emotions need to just stay over there and I'll deal with them later. And suddenly I am holding a newborn and feeling a lot of emotions that I have never felt before, not knowing what to do with them. And so it allowed me to understand those emotions. From that, it gave me a tool where, and you can find this anyway, you can find emotional circle. I found mine on Pinterest. And so I was literally able to go, okay, I know now that I struggle with my emotions. I didn't know that, but this helped me understand that actually I saw emotion as a weakness. My emotions, I love them now. Don't get me wrong, they're uncomfortable, but I'm like, I'm going to embrace you because I'm a feeler and I need to allow myself to feel, or else I'm going to be in a bad place. And it's recognizing those things. It's going, no, in order for me to be my best self, in order for me to be my healthiest self, I can't hide away from things that make me uncomfortable. Let's embrace those things. Let's learn through those things. It's the easiest way to grow. The fastest way to grow is to make yourself uncomfortable. And that's just what I've learned. And it's allowed me to learn these things. So super useful. I would 100% encourage anybody to go and find the Enneagram. And if you've got any questions, just message me. I use Instagram a lot. I talk about the Enneagram quite a lot. And so just message me with any questions.
Yeah, what's the handle on Instagram to?
So my handle is just BEA _ Roberts with double S.
Got it.
And I am the same throughout all of my social medias. So definitely, like, I'm not an expert. I'm still navigating. I'm not a coach, but we can do this together. That's what I'm just like, let's just do the walk together. It's learning a language with somebody else. It's more fun than doing it on your own.
Absolutely. I'll make sure when we put this on the content hub, I'll make sure I put links to people so they can find out anything underneath as well, for sure.
Awesome.
So I know we could probably chat forever, and I do believe there's definitely a part 2. And I'm looking forward to when I can get over there and we can sit down and have a coffee, which would probably take several hours.
Yes.
Chat there. But I would love it. So I've got one final question for this version of the podcast. The concept or the idea was originally this idea of emerging leadership. So I'd just love to hear from your perspective, your view on leadership and what it means to you as a mum and as a business owner.
I love that. I love that question. Because I've been in situations where, I'm sure we've all been in situations where we've been at a job and we've just gone, I don't want to lead like you. And we seem to find individuals that instead of learning how we want to lead, we actually go, I'm going to take it on board that I do not want to lead like you. Which I think is really sad, because then clearly we're not being prepared to be leaders. We're not being equipped to lead. And so I've had experiences like that, and what I've learned and what I've really taken on board is that there's leaders and there's managers or bosses. Managers and bosses just tell you what to do. They're like, I just need to get this work done through you to accomplish something and get the job done. A leader walks next to you. A leader is somebody who wants the job done, but wants you to excel through doing that job. And that is something that I am actively embracing with my team at the moment. I want you to become the best person in this role. How can I do that?
Yeah.
Instead of getting them to be like, I need this, this, and this done. And what's your strength? Let's work with your strength and let's just get you to gain as much confidence as possible. How can I help you gain that confidence? How can I come next to you and really empower you so that you're not stuck in the same place, but actually let's train you to be able to do my job in a year, because that's what I want. I want people to grow. I want women to grow. And we think, I don't know what it is about our mentality and the competition that there is within women. We want you to stay down there and I want to remain up here. And I'm like, no, I've understood that actually as we empower each other, we become so much better. And I know that's a really cliche thing, but I've just really embraced how if I empowered another woman, I don't only empower her and feed her confidence and get her to just believe in herself, but just that in itself helps me grow. And it's a two-way system. And so leadership for me is definitely, how can I help you become the leader that you want to be? Not just you stay down there, I'm going to carry on growing as a leader. It won't happen. It will not happen. It's okay, let me build you, because building you actually builds me too. And so, yeah, that is leadership to me.
I love it. And I think it's a really, really beautiful way to wrap it up.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I love this.
Love it, tied in pretty little bow towards the end there. And I'm sure there will be a part 2, 100%.
I hope so.
Yes, I think so. There's so much to explore there. It was beautiful. So just wanted to say thank you for your time, your energy, and your vulnerability as well, because it is so needed. And thank you for sharing your story. And I do hope that it touches the lives of many women and even men out there who are listening. So it's been a pleasure and an honor. Thanks guys for joining us. Thanks Bea for being
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you for the next episode very soon.
Absolutely, can't wait.